Oh my god, this one is gonna be really, really challenging. All right, let's do this. If you have been running a Lightning node or are looking to run a Lightning node, one of the things that you will very quickly discover is that it can be time consuming. When I first set up my Lightning node, I probably spent something on the order of 200 hours learning everything that I teach in all the different Lightning videos that I've shared, but also going through some pretty rigorous trial and error. And what you end up discovering is that the best in the world, the top nodes, are all being run by people who are pretty technically savvy and therefore have had the time to set up things like Karsten Otto's script, which I taught about in another video, or other tools that are somehow automating a lot of the process. Balancing channels, resetting your fees, opening and closing channels intelligently, running analytics and figuring out what channels are routing. All of this stuff is really, really complicated and can take a ton of time if you're trying to do it manually. That's why in this video, I want to share with you a brand new tool that I haven't talked about yet on the channel and how you can use it to automate all of that different stuff in one comprehensive place. Now, before we dive in, I want to give you a big fat warning and say that this video is very technical and it is going to be pretty intense. That doesn't mean that you need to be technical to watch it, but the tool that I'm going to be sharing with you today is definitely created by a programmer, and as the developer himself told me, it has no graphical user interface and therefore can be really, really overwhelming. So I'm gonna try and make it as simple as possible for all of you to the best of my understanding, but there is a lot here and I don't want you to get overwhelmed. Maybe watch this video a few times and maybe we'll do a follow-up. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so the tool I'm going to be sharing with you, or at least trying to walk you through today, is called LNDG, and it's created by CryptoSharks131, who very generously spent about an hour and a half trying to explain to me all the technicalities of how this software works. Now, LNDG proposes to be a light GUI, I would put an asterisk around the GUI part though, web interface to analyze LND data and leverage the back-end database for automation tools around rebalancing and other basic maintenance tasks. Even the description is really, really complicated, and that's why I'm honestly slightly dreading trying to make this all simple and clear for all of you. But before we go ahead and dive in, let me tell you how you can get LNDG on your node. Of course, for those of you who are technical, you can use the Docker installation depending on what you're on. If you're running a RaspiBlitz or Mynode, they have instructions right here in the GitHub, which I will link you to. And they actually already have a Docker installation set up. So if you are running one of these Dockerized node solutions out there, all you should have to do is follow the instructions directly here. There's also a way to do a manual Umbrel installation. And I will also say, of course, if you have your own setup node where you've actually gone ahead and pieced together LND and all that other stuff, well, frankly, you should know how to do all this stuff by yourself. For those of us who are running on Umbrel though, they've made it very, very easy for you. There's actually an app in the Umbrel App Store. So go ahead and make sure that you are on the latest version of Umbrel, and you will be all set to go ahead and set it up. All you have to do is scroll down to LNDG. It is this light blue icon, and you will be all set. So all you have to do, as with every other Umbrel app, is go down to this LNDG and go ahead. Of course, we're going to blur that out, but go ahead and set it up. It will then give you your default app password and username, upon which you can go ahead and simply open it up. Now, I did warn you that things are going to get a little scary looking and you are immediately met with a massive wall of text. Do not be alarmed. I've actually connected the creator of LNDG with some great folks that I know in my Telegram group, Shadowy Supercoders, and hopefully soon they will go ahead and work together with some front-end developers and maybe make this thing a little bit less intimidating and a little bit more user-friendly. Now, once we log in, we're met with, well, frankly, we're met with a lot of blurring because I'm still under the illusion that maybe some of you don't know which node I'm operating. But we are met largely with a wall of text. And one thing we need to quickly understand here is that our features are all lined up down here. So to give you an overview, now that we've done the installation of what we have here, we have closures, new peers, AR actions, which stands for auto rebalancing actions, fee rates, autopilot, auto fees, channel performance, key sends, rebalancing, and advanced settings. Now, I'm not going to cover all of this in this video. I don't think I possibly could, even if I wanted to. But I do want to give a quick overview of what some of the more important features, at least as I understand it, do. Let's go ahead and start out with probably the most important and most interesting one, at least for me, and that is channel performance. Before I take any other actions about understanding which channels are performing, which ones I should maybe optimize, which ones I should fix my fees, I really want to look at channel performance. And this is something, if you've seen my other videos about some of my top Lightning tools, this is something that's been lacking in tools like ThunderHub or Ride the Lightning. I want a quick and clear overview of which channels are performing and how much I'm actually profiting from them over a given time period. And you will find that LNDG does exactly that. In fact, it'll tell you the exact flows of each channel over any given time period. For example, the 7-day, 30-day, it won't actually give you any given time period, but a given time period. And one thing that's cool that I haven't seen before is it's actually going to give you an APY, or annual percentage yield. In other words, what kind of return on your investment are you getting? You can scroll down and see in these channels exactly what is happening. And note, for example, this channel has routed 6.8 million Satoshis in the last week outbound, and that has resulted in 49 routing events. You can also notice here that we have some profit figures, which is pretty useful. Now, of course, I did tell the creator that it would make a lot of sense to have the top stay hovered. Again, GUI is not where this app currently is. This is super bleeding edge, so have some patience. Essentially, what's cool about this is the ability to see which channels are really just not performing. And one other really cool thing that you can do is you can actually drill in. So if you click on the channel's ID, you can go in a little bit deeper and actually see what that channel is doing and what it has done over the last 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, and see all the rebalancing and on and on and on. But all of that can be done in a lot of different apps. What's cool here is seeing the rebalancing events and profitability of each individual channel. Now, I'm not going to discuss specifically the channel settings here because we're going to cover a lot of that later as we get into the individual features. So that's just a quick overview of the channel performance feature. Let's go ahead and go back and close some of these tabs and go to one of the other features that I think is so incredibly cool. Now, I've talked in the past about rebalancing, and I've even shared an in-depth video about Karsten Otto's rebalancing script and how you can use it for those of you who are relatively technical. This takes that to a different level by not only automating the rebalancing, but giving you a much more graphical user interface for actually doing that. Now, there's a ton here that I want to explain, but essentially what this interface is doing is showing you which channels can be rebalanced automatically and allowing you to set the parameters for doing it. So take, for example, this channel to async. It is currently enabled, and what I am telling it is that I would like to set a target amount and rebalance that target amount up to 70% of the cost of my channel. I also tell it that I want my inbound target to be 10%. Now, one really powerful tip here with this tool is you can actually hover over a lot of different things on the tool, and it will actually explain to you what it's trying to communicate. So for example, OTarget%, if I hover, it says when AR is not enabled for the channel, keep pushing out the channel until its outbound liquidity falls below that number. Translation to people who are not as smart as this developer clearly is, I want to keep trying to rebalance this channel until it hits 75% of the funds on my end. iTarget, therefore, says I want to stop doing that when we hit 10% remote, right? So we don't want to get to a point where any less than 10% is on the remote side of the channel. Max cost is just going to be a factor of how much we're willing to spend as a proportion of our current fees. Now, I'm actually going to turn that up because I don't mind making a low 20% profit rate. And I also happen to know that I have not been able to rebalance this channel at 100,000. So I'm going to try 50,000 sat rebalances. And what's cool about this app, first off, important note, you have to actually hit enter every time you make a change on every different field. So that's a little bit annoying, but remember to do that. It will actually tell you how many times it's going to have to rebalance in order to meet your goals. So in order to get to my 75% goal, it is going to rebalance 264 times. Now I can currently see that I have 7 enabled channeled for rebalancing and only 4 of them are working. And all I have to do here is really just go down and try and figure out what criteria is not being met. Now, you do want to be careful with auto rebalancing as always. As I explained in the video I did with Karsten Auto's tool, you need to make sure that you are going to be profitable. And this tool takes care of that already, but it doesn't know if you are able to actually route at the current fee rate that you have. And if you go ahead and lower your fees and you've rebalanced at 75% of these current fees, you're going to lose money. So you gotta be careful here and really only enable this feature for channels that you are confident you know what the going rate is. Now, that said, there is actually a feature that will eventually populate. Currently, I don't have anything to show you, but there are autopilot features built into this which are going to give you recommendations. So for example, the AR actions will go ahead and populate and tell you when it is confident enough that you know the fees in order to auto rebalance, which I think is really, really cool. Now, there were a couple of these already. I thought there would be more to show all of you, but I already enabled them, which is why I have 7 channels already auto rebalancing. But you can go ahead and check here, and this is something they're going to be building out and making smarter as they go. And the autopilot and AR actions are actually going to tell you which channels you can feel comfortable setting to auto rebalance. And I believe autopilot is going to then automatically do it when it thinks it's right. So AR actions is going to tell you, hey, I'm comfortable auto rebalancing this. I think I know what I need to do. And autopilot says, don't even ask me, just go ahead and do it. At least that's what I think it does. Now, all that discussion of channel rebalancing and understanding your fees so you don't lose money is a great segue into the next feature, and that is auto fees. Auto fees is pretty much what you would think it would be. It's going to tell you which channels you can change your fees on. And essentially what it's going to do is see how successfully you are routing at current rates and then tell you that it wants to modify. Now, unfortunately, as you saw here, I don't have any auto fee setting logs here, but it tells you that this is experimental and eventually it'll allow it to act on the LNDG features of suggested fee rates. So let me go ahead and segue into suggested fee rates. I know, guys, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. There's a lot to handle here and I don't want to give you guys an hour-long video on this. Instead, I want you to play around and experiment and see how you learn and understand this tool. So, segueing into fee rates, the next feature I want to talk about. Fee rates basically does an analysis of your channels and tells you what fees it thinks you should be marketing at or what fees you should be routing at. Now, really important here, when I enabled LNDG and set it up on my node, I had the other AutoPhi script running that I taught in this video. So I had to go ahead and disable that. And so this tool is very heavily anchored right now towards the fees that I was already running, because that's the historical data that it has. So you'll notice none of the recommendations here are too different from what I'm actually running. You see here, I have 195 as the recommended rate instead of 197. Nothing here is really particularly surprising, and you'll also notice some of them change back and forth as you're changing them. Again, this tool is a work in progress, and there's, I'm sure, many other amazing features coming out. But for those of you who have not taken the time to set up an AutoPhi script at all, you will find that this is an incredible way to just get some recommendations on your fees. Now, it's important to note the other fee script that I helped you guys set up on your node before is going to periodically, say every few hours, change the exact channel based on the flow of the sats in that channel. And to my knowledge, this is not going to do that. So unlike the other script that I shared, where you can look at the proportional distribution of remote versus local sats and increase prices as you go along, as you route, as you deplete the channel, this doesn't really do that. As far as I understand the way that this tool works, it's actually just looking at your successful routes and decreasing the price if you don't have a lot of successful routes and increasing the price if you do. So a little bit of a different philosophy here to how the other script works. From what I've kind of learned and understood, especially talking to Karsten Otto in this video that we talked about pricing for almost an hour, I've kind of come to realize that having a stable price for a channel might make a lot more sense. You want the gossip on the network to know what it's going to cost to route through your node for any given channel. And additionally, you also don't want to route for less than you possibly could. So as Karsten's point kind of elucidated, if you're able to route the last sat at a certain rate, that means that all the Satoshis up until that rate could have been routed at that rate. So personally, I'm going to leave my other repricing script turned off for a while now. I didn't delete it, but I disabled all the cron jobs. And I'm just going to follow these recommendations in LNDG for a month or two and see if my routing events increase and see if my profits increase, which I'll be able to do through the reporting in LNDG. So those are kind of the two major big deal features that I want you all to understand about this tool. I also want to let you know that you can go into the advanced settings and set some of the default rates. If you scroll all the way down here, you can set the default rates, for example, telling it what your default outbound rate is going to be, what your AR target is going to be, what your max cost that you're willing to spend is. And this is what it's going to do every time a new channel is open. It's going to set those defaults. Now, unfortunately, it won't reset those defaults once you've already populated and all the channels are done. But it does make sense for all new channels going forward to go ahead and populate this and make sure that it's all set up. All right, now that you're thoroughly overwhelmed by this rebalancing, let's go a little bit deeper here and kind of look at how this all works. And I want to point out some other key features here. So let's just try and go ahead across the top here and understand. We have our channel ID, peer alias, and capacity. You should understand that. I'm pretty sure you do. We have our outbound and inbound liquidity and a nice graph that kind of tells us where the balance is. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea why some channels are orange and some channels are blue. But let's go ahead and focus on the things that are not common sense. First off, rebalance out. That's essentially going to tell us if we have enough sats on our side to enable a rebalance out, meaning using this channel to send sats out so that we'll get them back on another channel. Now you'll see most of these here are set to false because I am below my goal and would love to have more sats on my side in most of these channels. Whereas if you look at some of my other channels, it'll tell me true because I have plenty of sats on my side, in this case 82%, which is much more than the 75%. So just giving you an indication of, my outbound liquidity not being enough or being enough to use that channel for sending sats out. Enable is, I think, the same thing as this column, AR, auto rebalance, because everywhere that it's true, we also have blue on this side. And I believe that that's just telling us that it is enabled. And I'm not sure why there's two columns for that. Fee ratio is going to tell us the ratio of fees between us and our partner. So for example, my fee here with LNBig is 11% of what they are charging for routing to me. And it tells us here that this ratio must be below the channel's max cost percent, meaning I need to make sure that my max cost is set high enough. So for example here, my freedom, you'll see I wouldn't be able to rebalance because I've told it only spend 65%, when in fact their price is so high that I wouldn't be able to rebalance. That last hop, at the very least without the other hops of rebalancing, is already more than I am willing to spend. If I bump this up to 80, now I have a chance of actually doing that. So blue is telling us that the fee structure is set up well enough that I'll be able to rebalance. And it's just giving us that percentage number. And you can see here, I'm pretty cheap as compared to some other nodes who charge 158% of my rate. So there's no way I'm ever gonna be able to balance that. And what I probably should do is just increase that rate, because I'm never gonna be able to replete the channel if I don't increase my rate. So I'm just gonna remember that these two, I need to increase my rates to them. Moving on to the next channel, rebalance in, it's going to tell us true or not true if it is able to rebalance given those current terms. You can see here, true is set up for some of these, and yet some of them it is not, even though I have auto rebalance enabled. So for example, for legalized math, it's essentially telling me you're trying, you've enabled auto rebalancing, but there is no ability to auto rebalance. And I actually am not sure why. So we have to go through and look, and it's gonna tell us that this 75 is just not, or not being met. And let's try and understand why it's not going to let us auto rebalance. Why can we not auto rebalance? Rebalance out, false, true, enabled, 32%. Ah, okay, nice little learning moment here. I believe that if we want to do it, we're probably gonna have to, okay, in target percent. All right, so that's a learning moment and learning opportunity you can see here. I'm sure you all saw that on video before I did, and I just embarrassed myself. But you can see here, I have the in target set to 100%, and currently we're not gonna meet that. So let's bring in target to 10% and see if that actually fixes it. Let's go down to legalize math, and we can see that it is now rebalancing. So I think I had a typo maybe on my defaults where all of these in percents are 100. You don't want, obviously, the in target percent to be 100 because that would mean that as soon as a single Satoshi moves over there, you no longer can rebalance that channel. So we need to fix that for some of these channels because they are not going to be able to rebalance. And that's what the tool is for. Now you can see that needle in the hay also can rebalance. So very, very useful. It's telling us, am I able to rebalance even though, whether or not you have it enabled. Target amount, that should be pretty self-explanatory. How much are you gonna try and spend for the target amount? This is something that you can configure in the advanced settings. You can tell it what the default attempt percent is. If you go all the way down here, and you scroll down, and what is the AR target percent? Meaning, I want to try 10% at a time. That's my current default. And of course, All of these were set when the defaults were something else, so I'd have to manually change each and every one of them. Let's try for BFX instead. We'll try 50,000, and for NiceHash, we'll also try 50,000. Of course, individually, you have to set each one of them, and I keep forgetting that. Let's do 50K, and we'll see if those can rebalance a little bit better. Max cost, we've already talked about a little bit, but it's going to say how much of a percentage of your current routing rate are you willing to spend. The default is 65, you can change that. Out target, again, we've already talked about, but it's how much do you want to get down to. In other words, keep pushing out the channel until its outbound liquidity falls below the target percent. So there are some channels that you're probably going to want to just push as low as possible. Anything that's an exchange, you're probably only going to ever route in one direction. And for that reason, you can probably set it really, really high and just let it run. In target, we talked about. AR, we talked about. And 7-day rate, well, that is going to show us, I assume, is going to show how our rebalancing has gone. The successful rate of rebalances. You can see I've had an 18% successful rebalance on Wallet of Satoshi, which is 56 out of 309 rebalances. That's pretty cool. That's really, really good. It means I'm actually doing pretty well on rebalancing Wallet of Satoshi. So I'm pretty happy about that. And you can see I have 15% here of outbound liquidity, which is great. It's absolutely fantastic. So I think that covers the majority of the channel rebalancing. I wanted to deep dive into that feature because it's a little more important than all the others. Now let's go ahead and switch on to the next feature. So that more or less covers the kind of feature set here at the very, very top. We didn't talk about closures or new peers or any of that, but it's all pretty self-explanatory. And if you've used something like ThunderHub, it is going to show you specifically, the closures and your new peers and that kind of stuff. One thing I do want to point out is new peers is not actually showing you new peers. It is recommending which people you should open channels to, which I think is pretty cool. I have no idea how it figured out that I should open a channel to zero fee routing, but let me tell you, I'm going to definitely open a channel to zero fee routing, and it has figured out that Fixed Float force closed my channel, and that was one of my most successful channels, so it does recommend that I open the channels. Now, I can only assume that the way that it knows this is potentially through how many payments are routed through that node and then to my node, or I'm honestly really not sure how it knows this. Maybe the guy from Crypto Sharks can recommend, but I think it's really, really cool and really, really powerful that it's actually going to tell you which channels to open. I don't know of many other tools that actually do that for you based on the data of your actual routing events. So that is huge. Now, coming back to the main screen, you might get lost and confused and thinking that all this right here is all that this thing can do. But you would actually be mistaken because you not only have an overview of all of your active channels showing you your liquidity, your current rates, whether or not active rebalancing, auto rebalancing is set up, but it also gives you lifetime stats for your node and the inbound and outbound rates. So really just a powerful overview showing you everything you want in one screen for each individual channel. But there's actually more, because if you go down, it's also going to show you which of your channels are inactive. It's going to show you any pending open channels, any pending closing channels, and it'll even show you your last 10 payments routed in one nice, neat, clean screen, showing you how much you earned and what the PPM was. And it'll even, on this sort of dashboard screen, show you your last 10 rebalancing requests, how many of them are running, and how successful things were. Now, I would love to see a filter here so that I could just filter out all of the unsuccessful ones and only see the ones that were successful. But one thing that's really, really cool with LNDG is it's kind of like an onion, you guys. You can click in and go even deeper. Yes, I have some exciting news for you all. Most of the screens that I have shown you have additional settings below, so you can scroll down and go deeper. You can see here a lot of the successful rebalances based on settings that we changed while I was recording this video for you. We actually were able to change the rebalance for legalized math, and all of a sudden it just started successfully rebalancing. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 successful rebalances just by changing the settings and preferences. I really need to go in and check both the advanced settings where you can set a maximum fee rate you're willing to spend, but also I really, now that I have this set up, need to make sure that I like the fee percentage that I'm willing to spend on each of my auto rebalance channels. And by the way, you can see here, I have the default set to 75%, and you can actually change the auto rebalance settings right here, which I think is really, really cool. Coming back to this big dashboard and scrolling down, we have the last 5 payments sent that you can see here. That's going to show you what payments went out and how they went out, and the last 5 payments received as well. I do believe that a lot of these payments are actually going to be rebalances of you with yourself, but it is good to know that they are there. Finally, I know if you're still watching this, I sympathize with you because this has been an intense one. But finally, you also have some really cool features here where you can connect to a peer, open a channel, close a channel, create an invoice. Honestly, you'd probably do all that on ThunderHub, at least until LNDG has a little bit more of a graphical user interface. But hey, if you want to, you can update all your fees right here and do it in bulk, which is something that you definitely cannot do on other softwares like ThunderHub. So really, really cool to have all these features here. And again, this tool is like an onion, so you just kind of have to dig in and play with it, but also keep updating your Umbrel, keep updating this tool, because I'm sure that they are going to release new features all the time, and hopefully some of those features will be graphical so we can all, those of us who are not technical, use this without being so overwhelmed. All right, friends, that is my honestly brief but really intense tutorial of LNDG. I hope you all have enjoyed it. I specifically want to thank CryptoSharks131, the person that I spoke to who will remain anonymous, who built this thing. I want to thank them not only for their time and helping me understand it so I could share it with all of you, but also for building this incredible tool. I know I joked a lot about the graphical user interface and how intense it is, but let's all remember that this tool is being offered for free for us node runners and plebs who want to improve the Lightning Network. I think that is so cool. So thank you. You know who you are, who built this. Before I let you go, I just want to remind you I have tons of Lightning tutorials on how to run your node, different automated tools, different skills and strategies, interviews, and much, much more. So make sure to smash the subscribe button and give me a like if you enjoy these videos. I can't tell you how much it improves my day. All right, take care and happy routing.